Hey guys, how are you today? This is Jim Prusak from the Pain PT, and today we're going to talk about the idea that I want you to see your symptoms as stress, not structure. See your symptoms as stress and not structure. And we're going to talk today why this is so important and why you want to do this in your approach for healing. Because if you're seeing your symptoms as structure instead of stress, you're going to be treating it very differently than if you're seeing your symptoms as stress instead of structure. And so when we can make that distinction, it, in a sense, decides what course of treatment we're going to do for your condition or for your symptom. So when we can see your symptoms as stress, then what we're working on now is the brain and the nervous system versus working on the body when there's structure. Okay, and this is where a lot of people I work with and I see have had a lot of different types of physical type of therapy. Heck, I'm a physical therapist, so I know all about that. But people have had a lot of different physical modalities for treatment, yet they're still struggling with their pain and still having difficulties getting better. And that's because they're still treating their condition or their symptom as a structure and not stress. Now, if we take the other side of the coin here and we look at your symptom as stress instead, then we have an opportunity now to work up here, okay, at the brain level. And remember, the brain is the most powerful organ in your body. It has control over every system in your body. So it's the top of the food chain. And it's the place we want to start and the place we need to be working at to heal. Okay, so I'm always telling people, let's move away from your body and move to your brain. Move away from your symptoms and move to the stress. Okay, so that means, again, we're coming up here. Now, when we think about stress, like, okay, I'm stressed at some level. My brain is stressed. Okay, what does that mean? Well, that means that there's some centers there that are overactive and some that are underactive, and what happens is that produces a response, or you could say a reaction in the body through your autonomic nervous system. Okay, so there's an output there, and that output releases many different types of chemicals and hormones and neurotransmitters and things that really cause symptoms, essentially, many different types of symptoms. So what we're trying to do is to turn that system off. Now, the good thing about this, and I've talked about this before with you guys, is the brain is so complex. There's many, many centers working at the same time in the brain when you have pain or you have symptoms. And that is something we address, or I'd like to address with people. But when we've come down from the brain and we come down to the nervous system, what we know from the science is that there's only two branches. It's a fork in the road. You're either going to take one fork over here or other fork over here. And when you're in stress, you're essentially taking this fork over here. Okay, that's the sympathetic output. Now, most people are taking this here. There are some people who are stuck in the parasympathetic over here, and in a bad way too. That's a freeze state, okay, where people are shut down. That's not a good response. It's a deep parasympathetic response for protection. So we got to come out of that. But most people are taking a sympathetic reaction, okay, and that comes from stress. So stress causes a fight-flight reaction. Now, what does that mean? Well, what that means is that it's eliciting different things in your body, chemicals and stuff, in order to protect you or to get away or defend or to save yourself, basically. There's danger, there's threat. There's danger, there's threat when you're under stress. And the brain is feeling stressed. So logically, what we need to do is we need to teach the brain that we're safe. We need to teach the brain that we're okay, that there is not a threat, there's not danger here. The danger is in here. The danger and the threat is in our head. Okay, which then goes into our body. So whether it's something in the past, trauma, PTSD, whether it's something in the present with a lot of stress that you're dealing with, we need to look at that. Now, everything's happening now. So your past is coming up in your present. Things happening in your present are happening now, real time. There's no other time that you can have a symptom than now. So whenever you're working with your symptoms in real time, you're essentially working with your past. You're essentially working with everything, your patterns. So that's why it's so important to work with, in the present moment, with stress. So whatever's coming up in you, again, we want to see that. Is it structure or is it stress? It's typically going to be one or the other. Now, what I see a lot of, and what we're talking about here, the pain PT, is there's a lot more stress creating symptoms that people don't believe it's undiagnosed, or they don't think it's from that. But when you can start to put into place some of these practices to work on the stress, and you start to see some changes in your symptoms, then you know for sure that you're working in the right direction. Or you start working on stress and you notice the symptoms getting worse, well, that's also another clue that you're working in the right direction. Okay, so just like you break your leg and you go and you try to walk too soon, well, you're going to have pain. And we know that physical stress on it is creating the pain. Okay, so physical stress is a real thing and causes pain, but emotional stress is also a very real thing and causes just the same pain in your body. We know that now. So I want you guys to think of your condition here, especially if it's a chronic condition, especially if the structure has been essentially ruled out, anything really bad, sinister, that you're likely dealing with a stress-related condition, and you want to 100% now focus on the stress, not the structure, not the body anymore, only the brain. Okay, so let's just talk about two ways here, and I've talked about them before, but let's remind you again, two ways to work at the brain level and not at the pain level. Okay, so at the brain level, when we were thinking about a stress-related condition, the first thing that comes to mind to me is, if you're stressed, what do you want to do? You want to relax. Okay, now that's a pretty obvious answer, but there's an actual practice in learning to relax your nervous system so you can get into that fork over here, that parasympathetic fork. This is critical and crucial for healing, because if you're over here still pumping out stress in the sympathetic branch of your nervous system, then you're pumping out symptoms. Think of it that way. And if I can move over here to my parasympathetic branch and start turning that on, what I'm doing is I'm no longer pumping out stress in the body. I'm now digesting that stress. Okay, that's why it's called rest and digest state. When you can get your nervous system into that resting branch, okay, state, it's going to start digesting for you. That's just what happens, and you're going to start feeling better. It's very much cause and effect here. So, how stressed are you guys? How stressed are you? 0 to 10. Let's take it like a pain scale. How stressed out are you? You've got to tune into yourself and know if you are coming up to here with stress, or I like to say that balloon analogy. Are you up to here? Are you've got a lot of pressure internally? There's a lot of stress internally. You've got to know this for yourself. Now, here's the thing. Your symptoms are going to tell you the level of stress you have. If you have symptom in your body, that means you've got stress being produced at some level. Now, maybe it's just mild stress and a mild symptom. Maybe it's a lot of stress and a lot of high-level symptoms. Okay, so we need to have you check in with your stress level and work to relax. Work to get that parasympathetic arm or branch of your nervous system going. Okay, and that's what I help people do in sessions, is teach them how to do that. It's really, really important. Without going into that branch, your nervous system is very difficult to feel better because your brain is still pumping out stress. All right, so that's the first thing. The second thing, and you guys know this as well, there's no rocket science here. This is what happens in the brain. The second thing is that, what is stress? What if the stress is not physical? What is it then? Well, it's emotional. The stress is emotional in nature. Okay, so when we're stressed in the brain, what that really means is the limbic brain is stressed. It's reacting. Okay, that's the amygdala in some other brain centers. So the amygdala is the home of emotions, the home of negative emotions. And what we want to do is try to work to identify and acknowledge how are we feeling emotionally? How is this stress making me feel? What's the category here? What's the undercurrent? What's the emotional tone that goes with the current stress I'm feeling right now, with the current symptoms I'm feeling? Okay, because when we can get in touch with these emotions that are part of the stress, we're now working at the limbic brain. We're now working at the amygdala level, okay? But we're doing it through our cortex. I'll talk more about that in another session. I've talked a lot about it already, but we need to work with the limbic brain through the cortex. That's how we're going to regulate it and work with it. Okay, so two things here again. Let's back up right to the beginning and say, look, see your symptoms as stress, not structure. Okay, good foundation. Okay, great. Now I'm treating stress and not my body. I'm treating the brain, not the body. All right, well, I need to learn to relax. I need to legitimately learn how to relax my nervous system from my brain to calm it down. Video calm, not catastrophize. 2, I need to probably get in touch with some of these. What's the emotional flavor? What's the emotional undertone of the stress? How am I feeling? I need to learn to acknowledge my emotions and maybe express them and learn how to let them go and release them so I can also come back to what? Relaxing. Come back to deflation of the balloon. So when we acknowledge and express emotions, that is another way that we are actually activating the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system. So there's real science here, guys. It's not some foo-foo thing. There's real science. And if you think about it at the simplest level, what you're trying to do is to settle the brain down, which will activate the parasympathetic branch of your autonomic nervous system, which will digest the stress and make you feel more calm, settled, relaxed, and basically symptom-free. Okay, so that's a daily practice. So let me stop now because I've been talking for a while. I could go on and on about this all day. But I really want you guys to understand this at a very simplistic level. Don't make it too complicated. Don't make it too... Because you know what? What is this? That's more stress. You don't want to create more stress. We want to turn that stress tap off in the brain as fast as you can and turn on that relaxing piece in yourself. All right, guys. I hope that was helpful just to shed some very simple understanding of the brain and nervous system, and that you've got to see your symptoms as stress, not structure. And then when you do, you start working at the stress level, which is essentially the brain level. All right, guys. Take care. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.